We're going to talk about a decision that seems to have split the country in two. I'm talking about Colombia and the recent rise in the minimum salary. I'm going to try and give both perspectives here and explain the English, along with the phrasal verbs, the idioms and sayings. So here we go. At the end of the year, 2025, where we are now at the time of recording, the government announced a historic minimum wage increase in Colombia. Historic just means the largest ever recorded in this instance. Unprecedented, never seen before. The new increase reached 23.7%. lifting the minimum wage to around 2 million pesos per month, including transport assistance. Transport assistance is a legally required payment to help workers cover commuting costs, going backwards and forwards to work, commuting costs. For some people, this announcement felt like long-awaited justice. Justice in this case means fair treatment after a long period of unfairness. For others, it felt like a dangerous gamble. A gamble is a risky decision with uncertain results. Many people are celebrating this decision. For millions of workers, especially those earning the minimum wage, this raise is not an abstract idea. It directly affects their purchasing power, meaning their ability to buy goods and services with their income, their purchasing power. Supporters argue that previous wages barely covered basic necessities. Basic necessities are food, housing, transport, and utilities. From this perspective, the increase aims to create what the government calls a vital minimum wage, which means a salary intended to support a dignified life, not just survival. Many labor organizations say this raise helps reduce income inequality. Income inequality is the gap between high and low earners. By raising the floor, it does this by raising the floor. That's an idiom meaning improving the minimum standard while not limiting the maximum. They also believe higher wages can boost domestic consumption. Boost just means increase. Domestic consumption is spending inside the country, in this case Colombia, because low-income workers tend to spend rather than save, meaning most of their income returns to the economy quickly. This idea is based on a simple logic. If workers earn more, they buy more. If they buy more, businesses sell more. And if businesses sell more, the economy grows. This is what we call demand-driven effect. Demand-driven means growth caused by higher consumer spending. So for supporters, the raise represents dignity, recognition, and social justice. But the story doesn't end there. Critics of this move argue that the headline number, that's the figure that people notice first, the headline number, hides a much bigger problem. The real cost of employment. A worker earning 2 million pesos does not cost an employer 2 million pesos. Once you factor in other things, to factor in means to include in calculations. Once you factor in social security contributions, pension payments, health insurance, paid leave, and other legal obligations, collectively these are known as payroll burdens. A payroll burden are all non-salary labor costs. The total cost can rise in this case to almost 3 million pesos per worker. For large corporations, this may be manageable, meaning possible to handle, manageable. But for small and medium-sized enterprises, often called SMEs, businesses with limited staff and resources, this increase may be unsustainable, meaning impossible to maintain over time. Critics fear companies will respond by slowing down hiring. To slow down is to reduce speed or growth. Freezing recruitment. Freezing in this context means temporarily stopping. Or even cutting jobs. Layoffs. Cutting jobs. This is where the idiom bread today, hunger tomorrow appears, meaning a short-term benefit that creates long-term harm. Another major concern is inflation. Inflation is a general rise in prices across the economy. Here in Colombia, many goods and services are indexed to the minimum wage, meaning their prices automatically rise when wages rise. This includes transport costs, education fees, insurance, and public services. When prices rise, the real value of wages, real value in this case means what money can actually buy, real value of wages can shrink, can reduce, which critics describe as wages being eaten up by inflation. To be eaten up in this context means gradually reduced or destroyed. In simple terms, you earn more, but everything costs more. But there's an even bigger structural issue here: informality. This refers to jobs without legal contracts, benefits, or protections. More than half of Colombia's workforce works informally. So critics of the wage rise, they argue that raising the minimum wage so sharply makes it harder to formalize workers. When we say formalize, we mean move jobs into the legal system. So it makes it harder to formalize workers because companies may prefer to hire off the books. That's an idiom meaning illegally or unofficially. They argue that instead of bringing people into formal employment, the increase may actually lock informality in. To lock something in means to make it permanent. Another layer of this discussion is political motivation. Decisions influenced by electoral strategy rather than technical analysis, political motivation. Some analysts argue that this increase goes beyond technical recommendations, meaning it exceeds what productivity and inflation data suggest. They describe the move as populist, which in economics means appealing to public emotion while ignoring long-term risks. Populist. Supporters, of course, reject this criticism, arguing that economic models often ignore human reality, lived experience, human reality, and that bold decisions are sometimes necessary to correct historical injustice. Historical injustice is long-standing unfairness. So this debate is not black and white. We also say it's not cut and dried. For a formal worker who keeps their job, the raise may be life-changing, meaning significantly improved living conditions. For a small business owner, it may feel like the straw that breaks the camel's back. That's an idiom meaning the final pressure that makes a situation collapse, the straw that breaks the camel's back. For the economy, it's a tightrope walk, another idiom meaning a risky balancing act where one wrong step causes failure. As a final reflection, everyone agrees on one thing: people deserve fair pay. The real disagreement here is about how fast, how much, and at what cost. This wage increase is not just a policy, it's a stress test. A stress test is a situation that reveals strengths and weaknesses for the entire economy. It's a stress test for the entire economy. Whether it becomes a turning point, a moment of major change, or a cautionary tale, a story that warns of mistakes, a cautionary tale, that depends on what happens next. Because in economics, as in life, good intentions are not enough. Results are what matter. I'll give you a summary of the key vocabulary, the phrasal verbs, and the idioms from this episode. Minimum wage. This is the lowest legal salary an employer can pay a worker. As an example, the government increased the minimum wage to help low-income workers. Historic. When we talk about historic, we mean unprecedented, never done before in history. The wage increase was historic because it was the largest ever. Purchasing power. This is how much a person can buy with their income. Higher wages can improve workers' purchasing power. Basic necessities. These are essential items needed to live, such as food, housing, and transport. Many workers struggle to cover basic necessities on low salaries. A vital minimum wage is a salary designed to support a dignified life, not just survival. And supporters of this measure argue that the new wage moves closer to a vital minimum wage. Income inequality. That's the difference in income between rich and poor people. Raising the minimum wage may reduce income inequality. Domestic consumption. That's spending by people inside a country. Higher wages could increase domestic consumption. Demand-driven. This is economic growth caused by increased consumer spending, demand-driven. Supporters believe the raise will create demand-driven growth. The headline number. This is the main figure people notice first, often without context. As an example, the headline number sounds positive, but it hides deeper costs. Payroll burden. These are all the employment costs beyond salary, such as taxes and benefits. Payroll burdens make hiring more expensive for employers. Unsustainable. This just means impossible to maintain over time. Small businesses fear the increase is unsustainable. Inflation is a general rise in prices across the economy. High inflation can reduce the real value of wages. Indexed. You'll often hear the word indexed. Automatically adjusted according to another value, indexed. Many prices are indexed to the minimum wage. Real value. This is what money can actually buy, not just the number. Inflation reduces the real value of salary increases. Informality. This is work without legal contracts, or benefits, or protections. Informality remains a major problem in the labor market. To formalize is to move work into the legal system. High labor costs often make it harder to formalize workers. Political motivation. These are decisions influenced by electoral or political strategy. Critics say the wage increase has political motivation. Populist. This means appealing to emotions rather than long-term technical analysis. Some economists describe the policy as populist. Productivity is the amount of output produced by workers. Wages should ideally grow with productivity. A trade-off is a situation where you gain one thing but you lose another. Higher wages may create trade-offs for small businesses. Stress test? This is a situation that reveals strengths and weaknesses. The wage increase has been described as a stress test for the economy. A few of the phrasal verbs we heard: split in two. This means to divide opinions strongly. The decision split the country in two. To factor in. This is to include something in calculations or planning. Employers must factor in additional labor costs. Cut jobs. This is to reduce the number of employees. Some firms, some employers may cut jobs due to higher costs. To be eaten up means to be gradually reduced or destroyed. Higher prices can eat up wage increases. To lock in. This is to make something permanent or difficult to change. The policy could lock informality in. To scrape by, you'll often hear the words to scrape by. This is to survive with very little money. Many families scrape by on minimum wages. To work out in this context means to end successfully. It remains to be seen whether the policy will work out. We had a few idioms and sayings in this episode. To raise the floor. This is to improve the minimum standard without limiting the maximum. The policy aims to raise the floor for low-income workers. Bread today, hunger tomorrow. These are short-term benefits that cause long-term harm. Off the books. This is illegal or unofficial work. Some employers may hire workers off the books. The straw that breaks the camel's back. This is the final pressure that causes collapse. For small firms, the increase could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. A tightrope walk is a risky balancing act. Economic policy is often a tightrope walk. A turning point? That's a moment that leads to major change. The wage increase could be a turning point for labor policy. And a cautionary tale. That's a story that warns others about possible mistakes. If it fails, the policy may become a cautionary tale. And that's everything from this episode. Thank you for listening. This is Listen. Don't forget to share and subscribe, please. See you in the next episode. Until then, bye-bye for now.